Yo, JD here, Limitless, and as you can see on F1 2019 as always, but you can also see this is not me, this is Frederik Rasmussen, and he has very kindly allowed me to upload this. Make sure you follow him. I'll put the description down to his Twitch, Twitter, all his socials in the description down below, so I really appreciate for him allowing me to do this. And this is his footage from the F1 Esports Pro Expedition race at Australia. As he says, this lap is embarrassing, but he comes across the line. He says a 19.2, so if that is embarrassing, I have no words. The guy is just an absolute monster at this game, and I really wanted to upload this because a lot of people ask me what it really takes to be an F1 Esports level.
Oh, not too bad.
Like, you watch my league races, you watch other people's races, and sure, we're driving fast, and maybe at times we're driving at that level, but these guys here who are actually competing F1 Esports, this is their job. Their job is to live and breathe this and to go to the absolute maximum. We're going to go on board here for his fastest lap that he did in qualifying. He's already done an 18.8, but going into this first turn, we're going to analyze the lap twice, but the first time we're just going to watch this because his driving style is just so calm. Here you can see hardly really any corrections. I think there's one correction that he does throughout this entire lap, but other than that, it looks easy. But believe me, the world record I think is an 18.6, which he set recently around this track. But it's just absolutely mind-boggling how fast this actually is. And with Frederik's driving style, I've noticed, and something we'll go into in the next lap when we watch this again, is that he's so good on the brakes. He keeps the car completely under control, and he uses every single inch of the track. He does not let any bit of tarmac go to waste whatsoever, and that's the beauty of this game, or being fast in this game, is he has a correction there, so it's probably the only correction he did. But on this game, there is no one driving style that's the right way to be fast, because the likes of him, Daniel Beresne, Jarno Opmeer, Brendan Lee, David Teniza, they all have completely different driving styles, yet achieve the same thing, as he does an 18.6, and that is just, I can't comprehend how fast it is. But going across the line, we're going to look at this in a little bit more detail now. So go through here, just between the two boards, that's where he turns in, going from 8th gear down to 5th, getting the DRS nice and early, and pay attention to how he downshifts here. You can see braking just between those two boards again, but he goes down the first few gears pretty quickly, and then the last part, as he hooks it into the apex, he actually slows down. And I noticed the way he brakes, he kind of has a rhythm. He goes through the first few gears very quick, and then just very slow, and he actually downshifts quite a while after he starts braking as well, which again we're about to see going into this next right-hander. So if you pay attention to the bottom right-hand side of the screen, you can see he brakes, then he goes down the gears quite quickly and then slows it for the last gear or two. And the reason why he does that is that he just keeps the car very stable. Because you go into here, not much steering angle really being applied here, but you'll be able to see once again, he goes on the brakes. You can see now, quite quick for the first part, and then the last gear, he takes his time, because if he did that too quickly, the back end would just be all over the place. And once again, he just has a rhythm, and that's the thing when you're driving, when you're trying to teach people to drive, they have to find their own natural rhythm, what works for them. And coming across the line, not really much of a reaction from him, but he's an 18.6. It's nuts, and he's just so chilled about it. I've spoke to Frederik quite a few times in real life, and he is just such a chilled guy here. But we're going to watch his full race now, as we've got 5 lights, and trying to get a good start. He's got David Teniza behind him, and Floris, who's done an excellent qualifying here, and getting a very nice start. And we're going to stay on board this entire race, just so you guys can get a perspective of what it actually takes. And I feel this is really important for people who want to get into esports. As I said, I feel I drive at a good level, and maybe if I did this full time, then I could compete in this, which I have done. I'm an ex-F1 esports driver myself. But watching these guys last year, just the precision and consistency you have to drive on the limit the entire time. You can't just chill out for a couple of laps. You have to use every single inch of the track you can see going to here. As I said, he just uses every single inch. He does not let a millimeter go to waste at all. But what I was saying is, you know, maybe in that some of my league races where you can just chill as he gets his first warning already, but you can just chill for a little bit. You can't chill here. You have to maximize it, because if you just chill for a couple of laps, that could be almost like half a second, and that could be the difference between you winning and you being outside the top 5 or something like that. It's just absolutely nuts, and you just have to be on it every single lap. And you can see again here, maximizing everything he can. And I noticed from his ERS, he actually uses high quite often, which is something that I have said as well. A lot of people do overuse the hot lap and the overtake, because honestly, I did a video on this before about, I think it was called Managing ERS Management, which was actually around this track. In fact, you really don't gain that much time, and throughout a race you'll probably go and gain a lot more time if you actually conserve your ERS. So you can see he's not even putting up to high there, but back down to medium, and he uses quite a lot of fuel as well, which is another thing that I do in my races. You may notice from my latest Silverstone race, and what race was at Austria before that, fuel, people think, you know, under fueling you go gain a ton of time, and what I experienced in this game is not the lap time is really increased, it's mainly just how the tyre temps are managed. And tracks like this, and especially in the 25%, you really don't have to manage your tyre temperatures that much, so it is always more beneficial long term to actually have some more fuel on board, because the engine overheating, which is a thing in this game, really does take a lot for it to be overheated. But he doesn't particularly rev out the gears quite a lot. He actually short shifts quite a lot here, puts up into rich now, goes into hot lap just for a little bit, because I think he wants to get out of the DRS zone, which he already is out of that DRS zone. You can see putting it back up to high, doesn't need to pull it in hot lap and overtake, and then he puts it down quite quickly again, back down to standard. Doesn't bother putting it in lean, which I would probably do, just to look after the temps a little bit more and just give you a little bit more of a fuel reserve. But then he just uses medium for this section, and basically you can just see here that he's just so consistent. It's like scale electrics, which I said before, just hitting the same point every single lap, and yeah, he just maximizes it completely. And if you want inspiration of what it really takes to be at the very top in F1 Esports, no, I did videos last year, and when I was with Renault, with Jan Otmir, when he won races, that gave you a very, very good insight. And you can see their driving styles are very, very different. I think Rasmussen here, as you saw in his qualifying lap, is mainly his traction and just how he brakes and uses the track. And that's where he gains his time. Obviously he's very good in the corners as well, but particularly under braking with that delayed downshifting, which is something I don't do. I actually usually downshift before I even start braking, and I know a lot of other people do that as well. It's really about finding what works for you, and I think that's really what the message I want to put across in this video, is that you have to find what works for you. But coming to here now, still out of the DRS zone, and he is just driving exactly the same, using the same ERS at every single point here, and going for his first sector. You can see he's only a couple attempts down off his fastest lap, and he is just pulling away from David Taniza at this point, pulling away a couple attempts per lap, because I think him and Flores, who's putting in an excellent performance, I have to say, just battling a little bit. And he's not even looking behind. You can just see he's just super relaxed, super calm, and he's got that fuel to play with. He leaves it in rich a little bit more often than I think he should. I think he shouldn't really leave it in rich too much, because I don't think it's really benefiting him that much. I would probably put that down to lean going for this sequence of corners. But you can see he is just absolutely, just using all the track, and the line he takes going into that penultimate corner, where he switches back across the track pretty quickly. It's just going to become second nature, where you're literally just driving on a scale electric track. But we're going to see now, I think a few people have gone into the pit lane. His teammate has gone into the pits, Yoni Tomoda, who I don't think had a particularly great qualifying, so I imagine that he is going to be pitting the next lap. And you can see the benefit of him not using hot lap or overtake really at all, apart from like the first couple of laps just to get out of the DRS zone, is that he has got a lot to play with. After 5 laps, he's
really scared that I might get held in the pits.
So yeah, I think he's a bit conscious that he's going to get held in the pits, which sometimes you want to go on an extra lap.
Might do an extra lap,
yeah, which is exactly what he's saying there. Because he just put it up into high and then medium back down. He's got a lot to play with, so if he does come under attack, he can just use that at his disposal here. But yeah, this is just really pretty. You don't realise how hard this really actually is, and I actually feel like just stop talking and just let you watch this. I might even do that at this point. Let's see if he goes into the pits this lap. But as Formula Danny retired from the session, I think I'm not sure what happened to him there. I think he got collected by someone, unfortunately, in an incident with him. But you can see using all the track once again, going into this last corner, a very delayed downshift, and he is going to continue for another lap, because that's the problem with this game, which I had myself sometimes when I'm in Mercedes for my league race in TSRL, is that if you're one of the first cars in the pit lane, you're pretty prone to be held by other cars. So let's see. Yeah, David Tanitsa has gone into the pits along with Flores as well in the Haas team. So now he's got to push a little bit. He's probably going to use a little bit more ERS now. Yep, he goes back into high this time. Instead of using medium, he just ups it just ever so slightly. Probably won't gain you too much lap time, but just the consistency and just his, not just a lap time, but just the way he's driving. He just doesn't change the way he drives really every single lap, and just using the maximum amount of track going through into there, getting a superb exit. Just the braking and traction that he does is just nuts. As I said, try it yourself to try and do these lap times, because it is not easy, and especially when you're under pressure like this in a race like this against the 20 best drivers in the world in this game, arguably, you have to say. It's certainly not easy. And I spoke to him a little bit afterwards, and I heard during the stream as he does his first lockup now, so that's actually the first sign of one mistake. So he's going to go into the pits, maybe an indicator that these tyres do need to be changed now, and braking very, very late.
Oh dear, that's a horrible connection.
Yep, left a little bit of time on the table, but as you saw in one of my latest league races, sometimes that is the best thing to do, especially when you've got a little bit of an advantage. Don't need to be going all or nothing going into that pit lane. And let's see if he's done a little bit of an overcut, or if the guys behind him have crept up. So coming out the pits now, see going across the line. Let's see if anyone is near him. It looks like no one is going to be near him. Flores has actually got in to a net P2. So yeah, he's doing absolutely fantastic. And yeah, honestly, not really too much to say. He's just going to be just driving exactly the same every single time, and you can just see how calm he really is. He said he wasn't calm on the inside, but which is probably true. Over his heart probably is racing. He always gets a corner cut warning there.
Yeah, we're fine. Nice.
Again, just confirming that he is just being super relaxed at this point, but you could just see he's just going to just do the same thing
Getting a lot of fan requests
every single time at this point.
Steep.
But yeah, it's just absolutely mental. And let's see, we'll stay on board for another couple of laps, just to see what his pace is like on these tyres, because there's only a couple people ahead of him who haven't pitted yet so far. But yeah, just really keeps the car very, very nicely under control. Couldn't see the setup he was using. He didn't showcase the setup, which another sign of a lockup. So it seems to be a little bit of a struggle going into that last corner, getting a very nice exit. And let's see what kind of lap time he does this time. So we'll go into the start of the lap. Let's see where he brakes going into turn 1 here. So about the 100 meter board, 5th gear, uses the same gear in qualifying as he did go through that one, leaving it up into 7th gear, and he never puts it down in lean, puts it into no ERS, never puts it into lean, really using the maximum width of the track and on the exit as well, completely flat out into here. And I think he's going to be extending this gap pretty quickly to the guys behind him, going down the gears, straight line the car before getting on the throttle, completely flat out for this next right-hander, going up into 7th gear again, using all the track, almost hitting the grass on the entry there. 4th gear through that corner, quite a high gear. Sometimes you use 3rd most of the time, but electing to use a higher one just to keep the rear end in a little bit more check. Going through into this corner, going down 6th gear, and then keeping it 6th gear on the exit as well. In qualifying, he went into 7th gear on the exit, and leaving it in 7th here. Qualifying, he went down to 8th. And you can just see that just the first couple of gears, he goes down very quickly, and then very, very delayed on the last part of it again, swinging straight back to the right-hand side. No sign of a lock-up on this occasion, using almost all of the track, attacking the apex nice and early, and doesn't put it into hot lap,
Floris is fast.
leaving it in high mix. And you can see only a 10th off as fast as lap as he did on the softs. But as he said there, Floris is doing an absolutely fantastic job at this stage in the race here. And everyone is pitted now. So all it is about is just keeping your head under control. And honestly, as I said, I don't know what else to really talk about, because he is just going to be consistent. He's just going to be hitting the same points every single lap that he does in this race. He just hits it every single time. And I really hope this has given you a good perspective of what it takes to be in F1 Esports. Still using 4th gear coming off this corner, but he is actually getting slightly lower on the ERS now, so he has to play a little bit in mind. I think he is overusing the fuel mix ever so slightly. I think it could have been saving a little bit more fuel than that, but David Taniza has actually started to put Floris under a little bit more pressure. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes about actually saving his ERS, because I think he could have put it in no ERS for a lot more than what he actually has done. Same with the fuel as well. Another slight lockup going into here, but always gets a very, very good exit. He just gets very good exits of every corner. And let's see how early he's going to put down this ERS. He puts it down relatively early. I think he could have done a little bit before that as well. Elects to keep it in 5th gear going through that turn 1, when normally I would use 4th. And Floris still in P2 in this race. Let's see what ERS he uses for this first sector. See the car wanting to step out just ever so slightly there. Going completely flat out, leaves it in medium mix. And with the ERS, I think if you go under 20%, that's when you start losing quite a bit of power. So you don't want to be overusing it too much. And the only thing I could say, as I said, was I think he could just be putting down the ERS just a little bit earlier, using Rich in the corners, slow speed corners. But again, I really don't think he needs to be doing that as much, because I think he's going to be using Rich again through the left-hander. But pretty much every single time he is hitting the same point in track, and the gap is now 2.6 seconds to Floris behind. And every single lap, as I said, is just exactly the same. He uses right wide here, cuts back to the right, likes to brake completely in a straight line, but seems to be struggling ever so slightly. There's one weakness on this track for him. It's definitely that penultimate corner, although he still gets some very good speed going through there. And let's see what the lap time is going to be. Coming across the line, very consistent. Again, I think that was less than, if I can read that right, I can see my screen is so small compared to what you guys are saying. But it seems to be very, very consistent. And he puts the ERS down a little bit earlier this time, so I think he's realising. And you can see the car squiggling around, so now the car is starting to become a little bit more unsettled here. And I think he's going to start putting the ERS down a little bit earlier than he has done before. But using Rich through these corners, which again, really don't think he needs to be doing. But David Taniza has now got into P2, and it'll be interesting to see what that gap is going to be coming through here. But the gears just haven't changed or anything. If anything, he's actually using higher gears through some slow speed corners than he did in qualifying, because in qualifying the car's going to be a little bit more loose, lighter fuel, more oversteer, a little bit more pointy, whereas in the race, tyre wear kicks in. You just want to keep that tyre wear in check at all times here. But he doesn't use any ERS going through this corner now, so just saving a little bit. Cut back to the right again, braking in a straight line, no lock up this time. short shifting as soon as he hits the apex and gets a very, very nice exit onto start finish straight. So he's got 3 laps of this race to go. Let's see what the gap is going to be now to David Tunisia. And the gap has gone over 3 seconds now. So even if he gets a penalty, he should be in the clear. And the thing that amazes me the most is just how calm he's looking on the screen. He just doesn't look like he's trying hard at all. Not just with his driving, but just as you can see on the webcam, he just doesn't look phased by at all. And yeah, he looks like he's just in complete control, and he is just in the perfect rhythm so far in this race. And yeah, if anyone wants to get into esports, then I think one of the biggest things is not just about the outright speed, because I think there's more than 50 guys in the world who have the speed to get into something like this. I think is what separates the good drivers from the very, very best drivers, like the Rasmussens, Opmirs, Beresnes, Brendan Lee. Those guys, is just the mentality. You have to be able to be calm under pressure. And someone I didn't mention there, David Tunisia was the perfect example of that last year. He dealt with a lot of pressure, and it's about how you handle it. It's about if you buckle under the pressure, or if you absorb it and let it fuel you. And I think that is the main thing. It's just the mentality of just being calm as much as you can. Because when I go into league races like I have recently, I thought I performed really well in terms of my pace, my race pace. And that is because I've just gone into it with confidence, but I was just very, very relaxed going into it. And if you're going into it not relaxed and you're panicking, then usually you don't do that well. So
the shadows are coming back on the track. It's tripping me out.
But yeah, he's quite a character. But yeah, as I said, it's not just about the speed. No, it's the consistency. There's a whole package you really need to get, because from in esports last year, I think from like first to last, quite often was usually about 5 to 6 tenths around most tracks. I know, and the last place time would have been extremely competitive in any league, no matter how competitive it is. It would have been competitive in absolutely any league. So it is really just about my mentality. But these guys, knowing this firsthand myself, these guys this is their jobs now. If you want to be at the very top, you have to make this a complete time commitment. And you can't just play this 2 or 3 hours a day. You have to play it for multiple hours per day. It has to be completely imprinted into you. But I'm really looking forward to this F1 Esports series. The Pro Draft was scheduled to be in April, but I think it has been postponed, if I know correctly at this point. But I'm very looking forward to seeing the drivers who are going to be there and in the season. And if we have anything like the racing we had last season, then it'll be absolutely awesome, because I do think it has got better and better each year. Although I do feel there are still some improvements to be made, and which I'd be interested to hear what you guys think about that. If there are any improvements, then please let me know down below. I'll probably make a completely separate video on it here. But yeah, it takes a lot to be very, very successful in this. And you can see now, moving back to the race, that David Tunisia has actually slowly started to catch him, and you can see his ERS is hovering around, almost getting into the 20%. Because this on 2018 it was very easy to save ERS, very, very easy. But this game, especially if you're out leading and dragging someone along, it's going to be very, very difficult. But as your ERS approaches 20%, you do lose more power than you would do normally. So maybe Tunisia being behind Flores has actually saved a lot more ERS, so he's probably actually using that at this point, making sure he's in the 3-second window just in case Rasmussen gets a 3-second time penalty, which I think he's only had 1 warning so far this race. But we've done enough of commentary on this driving. As I said, after the first few laps there really wasn't too much to say. It was just insane how consistent he is, and exactly what he's saying there. I think he used too much ERS I don't think he really needed to use it in some scenarios. Although he didn't use hot lap and overtake, I think he could turn it down a bit earlier. So like going down the straight here, he could have turned it down here now, as he does now. But if he did that throughout a race, even turning off 10-20 meters earlier down straight can make a really big difference. We can see Tunisia is really coming at him actually pretty fast now. But he is in the last sector of this race. He has got 3 corners of this race to go. Moving back to the right hand side again. Let's see if he locks up this time. No, he doesn't. There's a very good rotation going around this corner. And he is going to come off the final corner to win the first F1 Esports Pro Expedition race at Australia. GG. That was just insanely impressive. So please make sure you follow him on his Twitch when he live streams next time doing this. I will be uploading his China race as well, in fact. There's a little bit more action going on there. But I hope that has given you a good perspective into what it really takes to be driving at this kind of level. I hope you appreciate it. Thank you to Mr. Rasmussen for letting me use his footage. I appreciate that. And I will catch you next video. Peace.